Live from the beautiful Smoky Mountains. Smoky, especially across the street in Virginia. Smoky Mountains.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We live in such an awesome part of the country.
we really do. I love it because it's beautiful, first of all, and second of all, because we're not in Virginia, we're in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, that's a big thing. And
That's-
don't get any bright ideas, by
That's
the way.
the best part about this.
You're from
Because,
California, we love you, but don't,
yeah, I mean,
we're it's starting to read no vacancy around here. Goodness gracious.
dude, I read somewhere that it is so hard to find places to live around here.
Oh, yeah, the housing market is nuts. Oh, I got something crazy. This is inside baseball talking about around here, this was not on the schedule, but this seems to be our
I'm
MO.
like a deer with headlights coming.
I'll just say that a person I know in Nashville, so obviously it's more like Middle Tennessee, but a person I know in Nashville just had the real estate company that he worked for had a merger or a buyout or an acquisition. And you'll never guess when you followed it. I heard about it. I went 3 levels deep, and you'll never guess who the biggest shareholders of the companies that bought it are.
George Soros,
No,
but I'm on track, aren't
you're
I?
on track.
Yeah.
BlackRock
Okay, BlackRock.
and Vanguard.
Really?
Yup. And it was one of the largest, if not the, in Tennessee.
Shocking.
Shocking.
Surprise,
surprise.
I mean,
BlackRock is not only buying the real estate, but they're buying the real estate companies.
we're gonna have to start planting gardens.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Urban gardening though, I don't know about it.
No, it's hard to keep the cats out of your garden.
We got coyotes around here, man.
I know.
It's
I've
East
got
Tennessee.
groundhog problems. I mean,
Oh,
again,
dude,
I
groundhogs.
feel bad even saying this, and we're gonna get banned, I'm sure, for this. But last year,
Yeah.
I set a trap out, and you use. Somebody told me to use a cabbage leaf and put vanilla on it. They love vanilla, and you leave a little trail of vanilla, imitation vanilla, whatever.
Yeah. For groundhogs?
Yeah. So I
Really?
did this, and it works. So I mean, I'm a believer because it worked for
Hey.
2 of them. But I made the mistake of leaving one guy out in the trap, and my kids saw it. And they went out and were like, "Dad, can we feed it a carrot? Can we feed it?" I'm like, "Sure." Well, I did not know this, but the groundhog is easily not domesticated, but easily domesticated.
It's a little bit too tame.
Yeah, really quick. I mean, they're like, "I like you. You're feeding me, and it's good. I'm not going to bite you. You're feeding me." And so my kids kind of were like, "This is great." In so much when I ended up, taming the beast with a round.
Yeah,
And
right.
when I went out, it thought that I was going to feed it, and it put its mouth on the barrel. Barrel of the gun. Like, it's not even making this hard. It's
not good.
not good.
That's how I was babysat. Whenever I was a kid, my granddaddy would give us a gun, send us out into the field. And
You
be
are a
like,
true Tennessean.
be like, kill groundhogs, boys. And the only time we'd see him, because he'd be inside watching TV, he'd hear a gunshot.
He'd come out, "Did you get one?"
He wouldn't even say anything. He's a real quiet guy. He'd come walking out, hands in his pockets. He'd look at us and make sure he was just making sure we hadn't shot each other. He'd turn around, walk back in the house, and my brother and I'd shoot all day long, killing groundhogs. It was great.
Now, did he ever make any? I've heard that people make like stew. They make.
I don't know. You're eating a rodent at the end of the day. It's just a big old fat rodent.
I get it, but I've heard that this happens.
Oh yeah. There's people that swear up and down that they're good to eat. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I've never done it. I never will do it.
No, I can't.
Nasty.
I
Nasty.
can't. So in the news, huh? We've got lots going on.
Oh,
And
man.
we can even tonight just stay stateside. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You can just stay here. We don't have to go anywhere. And there's enough content in just the name Biden this week, right?
Exactly.
That we don't have to go anywhere. We can start with this little tidbit of information. This is fantastic.
Oh, this is glorious. I mean, what guy running for president of the United States gets the endorsement of the current president of the incumbent?
It's so bizarre, isn't it?
Not get reelect. We cannot win this reelection excuse me, we can only reelect Donald Trump.
Hey, we can only reelect Donald Trump.
See,
I think he's right.
I don't want to say that. I know he's kind of a spiritual man. I wonder if he's prophetic in that. Like, I want to play that again. I want to hear that again.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
it's just
Yeah, let's do it again.
Get reelect. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me, we can only reelect Donald Trump.
I didn't have the screen up.
Oh yeah.
Here you go for one more time for the people in the back seat, in the back row.
We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me, we can only reelect Donald Trump.
There you go. I like it.
The confusion level is, if you fast forward this just a little bit too, I want to talk to his handlers and his stylists for just a minute. Just keep going a little bit here. That's good. Okay. Let's look at the back of the hair. Let's either shave it or let it grow, because that is like,
You got to trim that up.
I want to say, well, it's almost like a fullet, a faux mullet.
Fullet.
Yeah, no, I have. Well, I just
good.
made
I
it
like
up.
that one.
Yeah, you can add a letter to just about anything and make it a combo word. So that's like a fullet. It's like it's somebody needs to do something about that.
You ever feel sad for that guy?
No,
You don't?
I don't. I did, but now it's to a point. The lies, the weaponization, and here's the thing: I don't believe he is smart enough to do this. I blame Jill.
Yeah. I mean, I
Partially.
blame Jill. I blame his kids. I blame his,
Yeah,
your
it's-
handlers you were talking about.
Yeah, because I don't think he is smart enough to play the games that they're playing right now, especially with the Department of Justice. You know, I mean, Dr. Phil came out against the Department of Justice and what's going on, and
Yeah.
you know, everybody seems to be like, okay, wait a minute, enough is enough. And now we've got the Hunter Biden thing going on, which we'll talk about a little bit. But I love the Babylon Bee clip from this week. You want to pull it up?
Oh, yeah. After seeing how much money Trump raised, Biden calls up DA Bragg to ask if he can get charged with a felony or two. He's over 200 million. Somebody said that it was 400.
I bet it's over 4 now. I
Yeah.
mean, 200 million happened the same
Pretty
day.
quick. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was instant.
Yeah. Well, I think in the first 24 hours, he was at 52 million. Gosh. And then he, within a couple of days, was at 200 million. And the last one I read was 400 million, although I don't know how many of those are big donors and that sort of thing. But nonetheless.
I mean, imagine, if you will, a world where you can go get a felony count,
Yeah.
right? Or 20, whatever, 24?
No, he's 34.
34, because 24 is not enough, right?
No, 24 was is a famous gangster. Al Capone. I think Al Capone was 24.
Al Capone was 24.
Yeah.
Okay. So
27,
he is actually outpacing Al Capone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trump for the win.
For the win.
And nothing but support on the rise. Just keeps going up.
is that bizarre? Like, I mean, and so people. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute, because I think this is important. There's a lot of people out there that are gonna say things like, as a Christian,
Yeah.
how can you vote for a felon?
Well, okay. You could almost say that if he was an actual felon,
Right, and that's
one thing.
This is the issue.
right? And I've seen all the pundits saying, "Oh, well, he was convicted by a jury of his peers, and in a court of law, he was in a court of law where the judge's daughter was raising money for political opposition.
Correct.
He was openly leftist. You're in New York, where he cannot get a fair trial in that city."
Correct.
Because where the jury pool that they're pulling from is all leftists.
Correct.
So yeah, you can say, and the judge's guidance. So the judge's guidance is what was so jacked up about it, that here's all these 34 counts. As long as it's almost as if they said, if every juror said one of these things could potentially be true, then we can get him on all of them. And that's how the judge's guidance was written to the jurors.
Now, in New York, here's what's amazing about this, because in every other state,
Yeah.
the judge's instructions get printed out for the jury to read and go over. In New York, they don't.
Yeah.
So I guess the instructions were like very long, and a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they went in having no idea,
Right.
there was that. But even still, you can't, I mean, you, when the idiots are running the asylum, right? In this case, the courtroom, every one of them, they're from districts and they're from areas that were totally anti-Trump. They don't like him to begin with. And I'd be curious to know I'm curious to know, do they know the voting records of the jury? Have they polled them to see who they voted for?
Yeah, I don't think they can. Some people have said they've tried to dox them. But I want to make another point on this. They say, how can we vote for a felon? If you voted for Joe Biden, you did.
Yeah.
If you voted for Barack Obama, you did. If you voted for George Bush, you did. George Bush was pretty open about his cocaine problem and all that.
Well, that's true. This is true.
Somebody
this is true.
Somebody that didn't get busted from a felony,
Right.
right?
If you voted for Bill Clinton, he's probably the cleanest president that we've ever had. I mean,
the Clinton Foundation
Yeah,
and he
right.
and his wife.
scot-free. There nothing about them.
Yeah.
I read a thing just the other day, or heard a thing the other day, about the 9 investigators into. There were like 12 police officers. I'm gonna have to look this up because I'm gonna say it and it's wrong, and I don't want people to be misinformed. But it was like 9 out of 12 officers that were investigating the Clintons ended up dead.
Yeah, I don't remember the officers. I know that seems to be a common thread.
Yeah.
That if you're looking into the Clintons, involved with a lot of, there's a couple of political people that's the case. You just kind of end up in some unfortunate situations.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Norm Macdonald made a great joke about it years ago. And this was in the, back in the, I think it was the first time Hillary ran for office, maybe. I forget what it was.
Well, it was Norm Macdonald, so it was back in SNL's heyday.
Right. Well, I think it might have, I don't
was
know if
he
it was after he had been fired.
Post SNL.
Yeah. But either way, it was earlier Norm Macdonald, and he was cracking jokes about it. It might have been during Clinton's time. Either way.
Well, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look this up.
People have made that assumption, and people have said it kind of became tongue in cheek, but it's not wrong. I mean, there was one. Who was the guy? The one that they found hung, shot in the back with a shotgun. The whole circumstances were ridiculous, and they said it was a suicide. And it's like, come on, now that's seriously that it's just so obviously not. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's a shielded political family, like a lot of the political families are. These are dynasties, and that's why they hate Donald Trump, because Donald Trump isn't a political dynasty, and he's bucking the system. It's the lobbyist class, the special interests, all those folks are in bed with all the politicians that are running. I mean, let's look at Lindsey Graham. I was talking about this with somebody just a little while ago, and Lindsey Graham has run more or less unopposed for decades. Lindsey Graham is one of the Republicans, and I'll use that in quotations,
Yes.
who wouldn't side with the rest of the Republicans in the Senate to not confirm any of their judicial nominees. They said, because you're going after our president, these political prosecutions, we are going to stand united as a Republican Party and basically stop any of the things that you want to do. And of course, they specified that it was non-defense stuff that they were going to stop. They're not going to stop the military-industrial complex because that's what got them all in office. But
Right.
Lindsey Graham, along with all the other faux Republicans, still side with the Democrats. They won't stand up with the rest of the party, and yet they'll run unopposed. They'll stay in office. It's absolutely ludicrous. And so there you go. There's my opinion on that one.
That's a big opinion.
It's political dynasties.
Yeah, that's a big
what we're
opinion,
dealing
but
with.
that is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, it
And
is.
the big one is there's no accountability. I think that's what kind of wears us all out about it. And I'm not just saying you and I'm saying the American people. I think polling shows that they're starting to catch wind of
Yeah,
the dual system
yeah.
for justice. That they're very unhappy. I mean, Biden's poll numbers are dismal.
Oh yeah, he's in the 30s. I think he's 36% right now.
30, yeah, in the 30s. In Wisconsin, I think he's 18, or
Which he might surprisingly win.
right.
If the elections
Right.
go like they have in years past.
So I mean, you have this, the machine which we all know has existed and has been existing for a long time. And it seems to just be churning out unfavorable outcomes for everybody in the Justice Department, in the hearings. We've got the Fauci hearing that's happening. We've got the. I wish Ben was here because
Yeah.
every week was a joke about Hunter Biden. I mean, and here we are. There's a lot going on with him right now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to hold the Hunter Biden case in Delaware, it's almost as like, okay, we got a judge who's like, this isn't right. Let's go ahead and hold it in Delaware where we have a chance, where we can, sway
Which
a
if you're,
jury.
if you're a good defense attorney, that's what you want, right?
Yeah, yeah. They just keep winning, even though they're losing, right?
Yeah.
And I heard today finally, because I couldn't find any information about this, but the idea is he's saying that when he purchased the firearm, he wasn't on drugs, and yet within 24 hours he was reaching out to somebody for drugs. And so you go, I don't, all right, what did you have, a 20-minute window? And nobody knows. How do you know?
Yeah.
It's just, I didn't lie. I wasn't on drugs when I purchased it.
Right.
Okay, you were.
It's such a two-tiered system.
Yeah.
And any of us that had done many of the things that are federal, it's more the bureaucrats than anybody else, but even elected officials, we don't get by with the same stuff. We don't get the same level of justice, and it's entirely lopsided. And I think that's what is driving people towards Trump, is they're like, look, we've watched politicians get away with this stuff for decades, for our entire life. When you think of look at Menendez, right? That guy is still sitting and receiving secret briefings. I don't think that they've removed it. And he took gold bars from from foreign countries and was flashy about it.
Yeah.
And he's still in office.
Yeah.
And yet, if we were doing that,
we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
We're done.
Yeah.
If we were being bribed by foreign nations, we'd go to prison.
If we cheated on our taxes,
Yeah.
we're done.
Yeah.
Right? These people get away with it time and time again.
Yeah.
Every loophole, everything. And Trump does this. I mean, at least Trump said, "Yeah, there's a loophole."
Yeah.
Absolutely, I took it. There's a loophole.
Yeah. Leveraging the tax system's not illegal.
No, it's smart.
Right.
But what they do is illegal.
Is illegal.
And they still get away with it.
Yeah.
Because the statute of limitations ran out.
Well, and they, this is
intentionally.
Well, and this is what they've done with a lot of the COVID stuff. This is what they've done.
Yeah.
They say, well, we're in, and this is why they don't tell us about it either, because I always get, it really grinds my gears when I'm watching congressional testimony and they're asking, whether it's Director Wray or it's, whoever, all these government bureaucrats, and they ask them succinct questions and that deserve and can warrant a succinct answer. And they say, well, it's still under investigation. Well, it's still under investigation. It's still under investigation.
Yeah.
And even though that's not technically, my understanding of it is it's not technically a rule. It's just a kind of what's been adopted as a procedure, not to comment on those things. They let these investigations go on for years and years until they don't impact an election cycle. Well, and then they might say something and they'll release it on page 6 of the Washington Post.
Or until it's just too far gone,
right,
and people don't care anymore. Right? Like, oh, we're on to something else now. There's, the war in a great example is, we're still talking about the war in Ukraine, okay? And yet, not much. What about what's going on with Israel? When was the last time you really heard a lot about Israel and a lot about what's happening there, right? We have such a short attention span. And so they know if they can slow roll something, it'll go away. It just goes away.
Yeah.
And I will say I give the Republicans some kudos because Hunter Biden went away. I mean, it kind of did. It became a joke. It just went away.
Yeah.
And I think the American people resolved themselves to nothing's going to come of this. It's gone now.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden the rhetoric is kicking back up and people are wanting justice. They're wanting him. listen, I understand he's an addict. I get it. We all know people that have been addicts. We've all got our own personal experience with this kind of thing. And it's sad. It's disheartening. But the last time I checked, the wages of sin have consequences, and you're gonna pay for them, and that's just natural progression, selection, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like my wife was telling me the other day about Tesla's having to recall their trucks, which they should, because nobody should buy an electric truck. That's just the dumb.
I don't know, a pickup truck that'll do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. It'd be kind of cool, but
It would be, but for what? I mean, are you going in the timber to pull a tree? No, probably not.
Right.
I mean, so, and I always laugh at these guys that have, I got the big truck with the lifted and everything else. I'm gonna put the lights on the wheels and stuff. I'm like, well, you ain't going anywhere. Like, okay,
yeah, you do 30,000 in upgrades, and you can drive it on the street.
You're just driving it around the street, So anyway, the tailgates have severed people's fingers. They don't stop if you get your hand caught in there, and so they're going to recall them and figure out how to put in a sensor or whatever to stop you from accidentally getting your fingers caught in the tailgate. And I got to thinking about that. Like, okay, we've been making pickups for how long? I mean,
Gosh, yeah,
70 years, let's say. Okay.
yeah, longer than that. I would say they had pickups around the
40.
Model T
Well,
period.
yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah, like in the 20s.
None of those tailgates had a sensor. You closed them by hand.
Right.
You got your hands out of the way, right? And so I just told my wife, I'm like, this is natural selection.
Right.
This is a prime example of natural selection. If you're going to have a Tesla and the tailgate closes, you've got to be smart enough to get your hand out of the way because it's closing. But instead, what do? Just like McDonald's prints billions of cups that says caution, hot,
Right.
right? They've got to recall them because people are too stupid to get their hands out of the way. And I think that just, in a nutshell, that is America today,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, and yeah, you want to call it, I'll call it stupid. It's
I think it's laziness too.
absolutely
Too lazy to lift
yeah,
the tailgate or to close the slide.
absolutely,
On the back of the tailgate.
absolutely. But we look at this and go, our attention span is so short, and everything that we're doing is being fed by algorithms and manipulated by whatever voices we're listening to. You're listening to us right now, so we're feeding you, and it depends on what algorithms you get on. It depends on, like if you take your wife's phone, this is kind of a bad example because we're like-minded people, right? But, my wife's phone and my phone and our feeds are different because, my wife's not looking at dirt bikes for my boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting ads for dirt bikes.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you get fed things and you get fed what you talk about. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I mean, if we pull our phones up now, we probably, get fed something we said, 10 minutes ago. And so always listening, always manipulating, always doing that stuff. And for us, the focus is so easily shifted. If we learned to stay the course on one item, one issue, right? Like, I don't know, how about demonic spirits in our government, right? If we could all just agree that that's happening,
Right.
then I think that if we put our focus there and never left that moment where we all recognize it, you can start to see and cherry pick things that you go, okay, that's evil. It's not these people are misguided. These people are mean. No, this is evil at work in the authorities that we've elected, or really, because it is so evil at this point, in the authorities that we didn't actually elect, but they're serving anyway, right?
Right. Right.
So,
which is where I think some of the greatest dangers are
absolutely.
in the people that are not elected, because we have no say, we have no control, and we have no oversight of those people.
Nope. And one of them is on. He's not even on trial. There's hearings,
Yeah.
but they need to put him on trial. They need to hang him up
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about hanging him with a noose. I'm like,
Yeah.
they need to string him out, man. Wear this guy out.
Yeah.
Because there are millions of people that are either dead or permanently psychologically damaged because of his recklessness or because of his desire to make money. So let's go ahead and get into the big moment for me this week.
Yes.
Is Dr. Fauci.
Yeah. And this was on Monday, is when he was in front of Congress telling the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic that the unvaccinated attributed to additional thousands of deaths in the country, and warning that Americans should not listen to conspiracy theorists. By the way, conspiracy theorists could also be now called people who were right. But do you think that this is Representative Garcia said, do you think the American public should listen to America's brightest and best doctors and scientists? I question that, by the way. Or instead, listen to podcasters, conspiracy theorists, and unhinged Facebook memes. Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat from California, asked. Fauci, this is what Fauci said. He said, listening to podcast memes and conspiracy theorists does nothing but harm people. And he goes on, he says, listening to people who you just described as going through doing nothing but harm to people because they will deprive themselves of life-saving interventions, which has happened. And some have done studies. Peter Hotez has done an analysis of this and shows that in people who refuse to get vaccinated for any variety of reasons, probably responsible for an additional 200,000 to 300,000 deaths in this country. Ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
And this is coming at the same time that, and I know Marjorie Taylor Greene brought it up, that these experts and these trusted scientists made $700 million off of royalties from the pharmaceuticals that they were pushing. $700 million, nearly $750 million.
Wow.
And these are the ones that, so when your advisors are advising you about whether or not they should do something, the people should do something that in turn will make those advisors money, that's a clear conflict of interest. I don't care which side of this issue you happen to be on. That is a clear conflict of interest.
Yes. And here's the other half. So I'm trying to find who he was. He's a congressman, he's a doctor who treated patients during COVID.
Oh yeah, I've got that video.
Yeah, and his segment was so powerful of this because he basically asks the question, did you treat these patients? And are you going to pull it up?
Yeah, I'm going to pull this one up because this one's definitely worth listening to.
Yep, this is it.
Rich McCormick.
Yep.
Yeah, here, let me pull this up. We'll play this one.
You said in an interview that you gave as part of an audiobook written by Michael Spector that you believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives so they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated.
I have to say that I don't see a big solution other than some sort of mandatory vaccination. I know federal officials don't like to use that term.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
I want to point out that I'm probably the only member of Congress that actually treated patients during the pandemic from the very beginning to the very end of the pandemic, during night shifts in the ER. Thousands of patients during that time. And in 2020, I was censored. My medical license was threatened because I disagreed with bureaucrats. Literally taken off the internet as a person who is treating patients with leading edge technologies, developing theories, but doing my very best, but being censored by the United States government for the first time, stepping in and taking the place of medical professionals as the experts in healthcare. Any dissent surrounding COVID-19 treatments, mask mandates, and any public policy surrounding the pandemic was immediately labeled as anti-science. I watched as public health officials and politicians told my patients what treatment options were best for them, regardless of their comorbidities or their medical history. Despite my education and my training and my experience, my opinions were relegated to conspiracy and misinformation by so-called healthcare experts who had never treated a patient throughout the entire pandemic. This has been a black eye on the medicine and has highlighted why government should never insert itself in between patients and their healthcare providers. The American people deserve to make medical decisions through conversations with their physicians rather than politically motivated mandates. Dr. Fauci, did you ever treat a patient for COVID during the pandemic?
I was part of a team that was at the NIH that took care. We didn't take care of many of them.
Okay, so not hands-on. Got it. Thank you. Why would I be criticized by a bureaucrat for doing my very best as a healthcare? This is a rhetorical question. But why? Why would the government, who's never treated a patient for COVID, you can read all the things you want, but you're not there. You're not seeing patients. You're not watching people die, intubating patients right there with that disease in your face, watching it happen, watching the development of this disease and actually learning from it. But I'm being told by bureaucrats what's right and wrong. And what's funny is everything I was censored on, I was proven to be right.
Love
Pretty
that.
crazy, isn't it?
Yes.
You said in an interview that you gave as part of an audiobook written by Michael Spector
This is important.
that you believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives so they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated.
You were going to have schools,
It's
universities.
a repeat of what we just listened
and
to.
It is. This was the game plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
This was the game plan. And here's where I think I want to talk a little bit tonight, because what we're seeing right now is the bird flu.
Yep. That's the next one.
Well, is it though? Because there's also the whooping cough.
Right.
There's a big rise in whooping cough now. So it's get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine. We are going to see from one, it's just going to start to snowball one to the next, vaccine, 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 vaccine. And I hesitate to say don't. I mean, things like whooping cough, we've had that vaccine for a century,
Yeah.
right? Safe, effective. It's a vaccine. It's not an mRNA vaccine.
Right.
However, who's to say they're not going to alter that? Who's to say, what is it about this medical community being run by our government that is so untrustworthy that people are going to go, yeah, I don't know if I want my kid getting the whooping cough vaccine because...
Yeah. There's people that have, like, you're 100% on, is that it used to be a trusted medical community. And because of one pandemic, because of the one instance, that faith has been lost. So now the doctors who have genuine motives, and there are a lot of them, have genuine motives at heart. They bought so much into the technology and science that they had spent their entire career, supporting and using and leveraging or not leveraging, but using to heal people and to make them better and to do, is now lost its credibility with a huge chunk of the population.
A huge chunk.
And and the government thought, the bureaucrats thought, if we force the people hard enough, we can make them trust it. And that's just not how it works.
No.
In a free and open society where we have freedom of information, we have, freedom of speech, and we can listen to all the different opinions, listen to the science, find a healthcare professional that we believe is honest and go with that person. Some people are going to get misdirected. Other people are not. But at the end of the day, when you start to shut down that information, everybody is automatically suspicious. Well, if they weren't automatically suspicious then, they are automatically suspicious now.
Well, and I think that's the thing. And when he says, you shut me down when I was proven to be right.
Right.
And because of that, now, and it's not like that's not mainstream news. It's, when they said that they're going to classify COVID-19 as a flu, basically, I think that the CDC really upended their credibility.
Yeah.
You don't shut down the world for the flu.
Right.
Right. And when things are coming out more and more about, what killed more people?
Well, that's the problem. We don't know.
We don't know because they're not being honest about it.
Right. The information is skewed.
Right. I read say Tuesday, yesterday or Monday. I read a blurb about how they classified people that were not vaccinated or that were vaccinated that died with COVID as being unvaccinated. This is the game they were playing.
Right.
We will never know.
No.
We're never going to know the real numbers.
No.
We're never going to know any of that. But I can tell you, person after person after person, my own life included, right? I had an uncle who went in for a routine checkup on his heart. He had heart trouble. They told him he needed to get a booster. He got the booster, and within 12 hours, he was gone.
Yeah.
And there's so many people have that story.
Yeah.
That are they all coincidence?
Well, no. Here's the thing. When you're in a time of economic unrest, social unrest, international, the conflict around the world, when you talk about, Israel and Palestine just as an example, and Russia and Ukraine, there's instability around the world. There's so many things that are unstable. They're at a point where they feel they can't come out and say, we were wrong. Because you have to have, for all that to work, for the economy to work, for our foreign policy to work, for all that stuff to work, people have to have trust and faith in the federal government. So they can never admit that they got something wrong. And they will never admit that they got something wrong. And that's a disservice to us, and the people that are digging, when you look at the Freedom Caucus and you look at people in Congress, other true conservatives, I won't say Republicans because the Republicans are just as bad, but the ones that still say Republican but are actual conservatives, there are people trying to fight to get information and they're releasing it piecemeal, but it's just enough to educate us to say, hey, Americans, keep your antennas up and, keep your ears open, pay attention to what people are saying and look 2 or 3 levels deep because you're probably not getting accurate info. You're probably not getting a fair shake with the people that you put in office, by the way, from your elected representatives. And there are some good ones out there. I feel like we've got a good one. Diana Harshbarger.
Yeah.
I feel like she's a good
she's
one.
coming for coffee. I didn't know if you know the Slater Center. You can go up and have coffee.
Really?
Yeah, go have coffee with her.
Oh, I ought to go have a coffee with her.
Can you imagine? She's going to be so...
Let's get her on the podcast.
She's going to be so jacked up on coffee by the end of that.
Yeah.
I just want to have a cup of coffee. I just had my third one,
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think it's pressure to they're testing our limits.
Yes.
Because if you want to have a great reset, if you want to have one world currency, one world government, if you want to bring this whole, you're going to have to you have to find out who are the dissenters and do something with those dissenters. But you have to know how many people and how far you can push those people who will just relent, and how much will they turn on their fellow citizens, and how can you leverage that in order to...
Well, it's fascinating you bring that up tonight, Jared, because the dissenters, by and large, right, are what we would call conservative or constitutional conservatives,
right?
The vast majority of which have a belief system in place that there is an authority that is not our government.
Yeah.
And that's God, and his son Jesus died for us, right?
Yeah.
So you can call them the evangelical base, whatever you want to call them. But I find it fascinating that, in the end times, this group suffers persecution, right? We know that this is coming. And you're right, they're going to push buttons. They're going hard after it. I did want to share Ephesians 6:12. It's one of my favorite verses. It's a constant reminder.
Okay. Totally weird that you just mentioned that because this wasn't talked about before. I was just reading that today.
Were you?
King James versus Geneva Bible version.
Boom. I pulled up the Geneva.
Okay, the Lord wanted us to talk about this one tonight.
So, the Geneva Bible, which predates the King James translation.
Yeah, by like 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the worldly governors, the princes of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness, which are in ye high places." So, the King James Version doesn't have the whole worldly governors, princes of darkness in the world in it. It's taken out, and because it's the King James version,
Right.
right? So probably
Worldly governors
Right,
is problematic for the king.
I'm not sure if I want that in there. If I'm the
That's
king.
problematic.
Right. However, and it's not to say, Jesus himself said, "Hey, render to Caesar what's Caesar's." Like he wasn't here to rail against authority. He was here to rail against the enemy.
Yeah.
And the enemy is in high places. Remember, even though God is the creator of the universe, creator of the world, Christ came to conquer once and for all Satan. Satan rolls around like a prowling lion, and he has dominion over the earth, right? He has been allowed, basically, to have principalities and areas and things of this world. He is in control of some things. Not that he wrestled it away from God, right? I always say, Satan really isn't even a gnat on the windshield of God's Chrysler, like it's pathetic, right?
Right.
He has no authority unless God allows it. Okay. And people, this gets into some deep theologies, which we don't need to do, but people will often ask things like, why would God allow that? Well, why does God allow you a free will?
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the plan, because God is a God of redemption. It's part of the redemption story. There has to be something to redeem. There has to be something to rescue. He wants to do this, right? But he wants us to choose him. And so at any rate, all that being said, I think it's fantastic. That's so funny that we're there, that it says, against the worldly governors, because there are powers in high places that do not serve Yahweh, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In fact, more and more of it, you're going to see there's going to be a one world government. There's going to be the governments around the world are going to submit to an authority that isn't from God, right?
Yeah.
And these things, by the way, it's always been. Since the Tower of Babel, it's always been where governments, rulers have not been good things. They've been evil. They've been possessed. They've been demonic.
Yeah.
And these demons, these gods, these lowercase gods have been here the whole time. They've changed their names, but they're still here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any institution made of men is capable of being corrupted, just like every man is able to be corrupted, right? I mean, we're infallible people, so there's no way to stop it necessarily from being corrupted. The closest system we've had to not that it's not corrupted, but to still letting the people retain power is what we've got in our constitutional representative republic. But at the same time, if evil becomes part of the culture, this is why the culture war is important. This is, I mean, I say important. It's important that we fight back against the culture war.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we fight back and be vocal, excuse me, even in our political system, because when those things get so closely intertwined, then you start changing the culture, you are giving those authorities that are corruptible the power to expel, like our Judeo-Christian principles, expel, we're talking about COVID. They can shut down churches in the middle of COVID, but you can leave the liquor stores and dispensaries open, right? Yeah. So they can do little things to shape your culture.
That's important.
Right. And the more they take control and the more we move to the left politically, which is what aligns with the culture war, the further down the drain our country continues to go.
But I think what we're seeing now, with this, with the re-upping of Biden, with Trump making 200 million being a felon, right?
Right.
With all this stuff, is that the pendulum is swinging back hard.
Yeah.
And fast. And, I don't know that we're going to see an outcome that is going to be favorable for this election, because I think that it's already been done, right? I mean, there were so many valid points that I've heard about the early voting, eliminating an October surprise when you've got 1/3 of the votes in before October.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just ridiculous at this point. And the illegal the flood of people that are coming into this country. I mean,
Yeah, I know. No, I know.
I want to get into it, but
Right.
you know, I mean, Biden's so angry at the Republicans for not, you know, standing up and coming against this immigration crisis that we have. And it's like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
If there ever was a political stunt, this is it.
Yeah.
You're gonna do this now, or we're gonna limit it. Oh, really? You're gonna do this now?
Well, he came out and said that you're right. Hey, we're going to limit it to, what is it, 2,500?
2,500.
Yeah.
Which is 2,500 too many
Yeah.
at this point. But
Where was it? You want me to pull that one up?
sure,
Is that the one?
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, this is the one. But I think, here's what I think. I think that the wave that Donald Trump is going to see is still more. I shouldn't say I think. I'm hopeful that the wave of non-standard voters, the ones who are seeing this now as a political prosecution, which is what it is, turning around saying, all right, even this is too much for me. Yeah, I don't like the guy, but my gas, my food, my every day-to-day living expenses are so astronomically high, up 20%. McDonald's is up over 100% in some cases. That I can't take my kids out. I can't take my family out to dinner.
Right?
Okay.
It's terrible.
I remember my memory has been revitalized, and I can think back to those Trump years when gas was $1.87 a gallon.
Yeah.
When inflation wasn't, he was still spending a lot because after the COVID situation. But I try to separate that out of it because that was an anomaly.
Yeah.
You know. So
Well, it was an anomaly, but it was planned.
yeah.
But it's an anomaly. But
it was
you
all
know, I mean, people I think are getting sick. I know I am. I'm getting sick of boiling dandelions and feeding them to the kids. You know, it's like we're tired of this. We're just
boiling
tired.
dandelions.
Yeah, I mean, there's nutrients.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing, though. After November, let's give a hypothetical here. After November, Donald Trump loses. I don't think that this situation in our country will change. We're either going to collapse because of our massive spending problem, because it's not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem.
Spending problem.
Our country's either going to collapse, or we are going to have to get to the point that people start missing meals before they will realize, hey, we've been voting wrong for a very long time. Maybe this culture war stuff is not that important. Maybe it's more important that we get back to our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our Judeo-Christian principles. They might not.
They won't call it that.
They won't call it that.
Yeah,
But
back to our roots.
yeah, how about we get back to start holding our elected officials accountable for spending all of our money?
Yeah.
Or the question that a lot of people have been asking recently, why are they tax us? Why are they borrowing money if they can just print more money? And this gets into some circular logic that is very fascinating, but some economists have talked about it.
It's so dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like, okay, the government borrows money, yes. And the government pays interest on that money, yes.
Yes.
But then the government prints money, yes.
Yes.
So why do you need to be taxed? Why do you need my money? Because you can just print more of it. And why do you need to borrow it if you can just print it? It's really interesting, but nonetheless.
But I do. We wrestle against worldly governors, against the prince of darkness of the world, against spiritual wickedness. What we are seeing at play in this administration, in previous administrations, is spiritual wickedness.
Yeah.
And they can masquerade as being good. They can masquerade as being okay. But anytime they tolerate sin on a humanity scale, right? And people are, well, you should have we should, we got to let people make their own decisions, and you do. But murdering somebody in the womb, sorry.
Yeah.
We've gone too far. And I do believe that America is going to see and is seeing God's judgment because of that.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but it's true. And not to mention the whole thing of abortion. If you look into it, all you pro-choicers, if you really look into it and understand the history of it, you're going to realize that was designed to eradicate a race.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to hear this, but the truth of it is, look up your choice, your freedom of choice, women, and understand that what you're doing is without realizing you're doing it, is standing on the side of something that was designed to eradicate a race of people in this country.
Margaret Sanger.
And they were, in a lot of instances, pretty successful,
Yeah. Oh,
sadly,
yeah.
right? So, at any rate, it's just like everything else. That I saw a video the other day of a trans man interviewing a woman at because this is Gay Pride Week.
Oh, month.
Yeah.
Get a whole month.
Sorry, I get confused. They get weeks,
know.
days, months. I think every month there's a something.
Yeah. Somebody told me there's like 100 days or something that
Yeah,
are.
it's
whatever.
half the year, because they need it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very important.
Well, I guess when you're confused, affirmation is important. So, anyway, so Gay Pride Month. So I was watching this trans man he had like a microphone that had feathers around it and fluffy, or like it looked like a magic wand, but it was a microphone. It was like, oh my gosh, over the top. Interviewing somebody who is openly, rainbowed out and totally pro-Palestine, right? And he said, so what do you think they would do to me in Palestine? And the woman's like, I don't know, what do you think they'd do to me in Israel? She's like, well, they'd probably murder you, or, and he's like, no, Israel's actually pro-pride. Israel's pro.
Yeah.
He said in Palestine they would murder me or imprison me.
Yeah.
I didn't, and she,
Israel's become almost like San Diego. I mean, it's
but
it's very leftist.
But what cracked me up is this wasn't somebody that's new. This was a middle-aged woman.
Right.
What do they listen to and read? It's what algorithm are they? They're not
Yes.
getting anything but what
Yeah.
what they want to be spoon-fed. Where she was like, I didn't know that, and I mean, thank goodness it was coming from somebody on that spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Who was saying, hey, wait a minute, this isn't okay. We can say that, and they're not going to believe us.
Right.
But for him to say it, or her, him, her, it, they to say it, is more like, okay, wait a minute. I want to listen to this because this person, him, her, they, it, looks more trustworthy than we do, right? I'm going to listen to them.
Yeah.
So, but it's coming out, and those voices are beginning to resound with some aspect of truth in the midst of their confusion.
Yeah. There have been some people in the LGBTQ, whatever else, the alphabet soup community that have, there's something called the, golly, what is it? The something exit movement. It's basically because LGBTQ normally was a left wing in their politics.
Yeah.
And they've started the walk away movement. That's what it was. And there's a guy that's been showing up on
walk away.
Oh yeah. And so he being the guy who started it is like, nope, we're out. And he's got a huge following of people that are like, no, this is not,
This isn't for us.
This isn't for us. This isn't our, this isn't what we're looking for. So there are people in that community who are waking up to it. And I think that it's obviously a net positive. But I was listening to Charlemagne the God. Have you ever heard of Charlemagne the God? He was on Piers Morgan. He's a black man. He's got a huge, massive, I don't know how many millions podcast. And I listened to the first snippet of it, and that's what really jumped out at me, is they were talking about these people groups that are homogenous, and he was saying that he didn't believe that the black community was homogenous. And they're inside of that world, they feel like there's diverse opinion, but when you look at the voting records, that is not the case. And so we need more. Candace Owens had the Blexit movement, where she was getting people to say, hey, come over here. And there's a huge movement of black conservatives out of voting Democrat. Well, I say black conservatives. Just black individuals that are moving over towards the conservative side of things. They're LGBTQ people. And the only reason those don't equate on any level other than they are the people groups that the Democrats have been trying to divide us by for a very long time.
I think that's the key. And why we talk about it is because that was a target demographic for them to try to drive a nail in the coffin and you know, seniors too. That's another one that
Right.
is ironic to me. I mean, that, you know, well, they, you know, the Republicans just want to take away your Social Security. I mean, wait a minute, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all waking. I don't think. I think maybe the last two elections or the election before last, maybe they were falling for that. But I think they've heard that for so long, they're like, I don't believe this.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
And you know,
Well, I mean, they're going to have to raise the retirement age and all that stuff, but that's a key component of a culture war. If you look at the Chinese Revolution or the Cultural Revolution,
Yep.
was the same way, dividing people by groups and pitting one against the other, and that's the easiest way. And we're fighting it because we're different. Our history is different in America, so there still is enough of a seed of liberty in our society that we're fighting that homogeneity. I think that's a word.
it is now.
And so if it's not, it is. It's
Maybe
darn
I think
good
that
one,
you're onto something. I think we're too new.
yeah, we're too new.
So you look at Rome, right? You look at these great empires that have fallen. They existed for centuries, if not a millennia, right? And then they fell. We're so young yet that we go, okay, wait a minute. We've got, you know, we can trace our lineage back to the Civil War. We can trace our, you know, we can look at those men and women who fought in World War I, World War II, that were part of our family, that were, you know, and for most people, especially us, you know, Gen Xers, right?
Yeah.
We've got family, older family that were in the service or that were, right? That have skin in the game, and those people have imparted to us the importance of patriotism, the importance of your country, of loving your country, because they did.
Yeah.
And for us, somehow, because we've gone away from, now I know you've served, but because I think the Gen Pop has gone away from that, there hasn't been a war, there hasn't been a draft. I mean, Vietnam clouded the judgment of so many people, right? Because it was a war like most wars that we're fighting now, where the rules of engagement don't favor us,
Yeah.
right? That we've lost that sense of pride.
Yeah.
And so
Well, and they're erasing some of it from our history. So if you look they're trying to erase Civil War history and Revolutionary War history, all because of one issue that was a global issue, not just an American issue. They make it uniquely Western. You know, this is just an American thing, having a slave trade. No, it's going on today for you know, that aren't aware. There's more in slavery now than there ever have been in world history. But
and what's ironic about it is it's as Western as, I mean, we're like one of the first or second countries to abolish it, right?
Yeah.
And yet
Britain
it's like,
says that they did before us.
I don't think
but,
they did.
But I think their slave trade was going on, just not in Britain. They were still
in
doing
the
it.
Indies.
But and people don't pay attention to the Barbary Coast,
Right.
And our sailors that were taken, there was a total of it was hundreds of thousands that were taken into slavery. White people that were taken into
Of
slavery.
our bars.
Not just of ours, but of ours and British and other people. But
Okay.
there was a massive slave trade along the Barbary Coast. But that doesn't matter, right?
No. What matters is America.
Right. I mean, it matters what happened just from, 1619, which is there, up until whenever I forget the year, but
so, yeah, I think that is one of the things. We're too new. We still have that thread of liberty, that thread of love for our nation. And we still remember, like, what is Don McLean? Who's the guy that sang Bye Bye Miss American Pie, drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. That whole, them good old boys.
Yeah. I know who you're
whiskey and
talking
rye,
about.
singing "This Will Be the Day That I Die." We still remember the good old days.
Yeah, you said Don McLean. I was started thinking John McClane, and I was like, no, it's Bruce Willis.
So, but yeah,
Who's also an American hero.
yippee-ki-yay. So you look at that and you go, okay, maybe we're too new, that there's enough of us that remember riding our bikes and playing baseball and fireworks and how great watermelon was on a summer day and all the things that the carefree lifestyle of freedom. And we're not willing to give that up so easy. But our job is to impart that to our children. And I
That's the
think
key right
this is
there.
where we have failed miserably, in churches, in families, because, and this is a target of families are a target, right? If they can get the nucleus of the family to separate,
Yeah.
then they've got it, because
Yeah.
there isn't anybody to do this. However, now we might, I mean,
Well,
we're going to find out if this works or not.
National Defense Authorization
This
Act.
might completely backfire, because it might sow a seed of patriotism in these people that they're trying to eradicate, right?
Well, I don't know if they're trying to. I just think that we're hurting so bad that kids will not sign up for the military. So the ones that can won't. The ones that want to can't.
And the fiber of the military, this is what kills me. The fiber of the military, the trained men and women who were good.
Yeah.
You guys,
Yeah.
because of this, because of Fauci and because of what they were doing with this vaccine,
Yeah.
so many of them have said bye-bye.
Yeah.
And they're not going back.
Yeah. All that mandatory force stuff. The people, because we, when I was actually in recruiting for a while, and where I was technically in the South, but the northern part of the country. So we had, because we were in Tennessee, we had a very high mission number, and it was still hard for us to make our mission, even though we were in Tennessee. But if you were in the South, that's where you're getting your huge numbers from. And those are also the people who have an inherent distrust for the federal government.
Right.
Those are people that were very much opposed to what was going on during COVID. And so there are probably a lot of veterans out there saying, no, boy, to their kids, you ain't going to do this. You ain't going. Yeah. But now they've said that except otherwise provided in this title, every male citizen of the United States and every other male person residing in the United States between the ages of 18 and 26 shall be automatically registered under this act by the Director of Selective Service. You're going to be automatically enrolled in Selective Service. This is the National Defense Authorization Act. And this used to be voluntary, and if you wanted to vote, you had to join the Selective Service, make yourself eligible for the draft. If you didn't want to be part of the draft, that's fine. Then you don't vote. Now they're saying, well, we're just going to add everybody, la-di-da-di everybody, whether you want to or not. Because if something pops off around the corner, we're going to need to fire this thing back up, is how this reads. And, I mean, do you think that, what are these kids?
Oh, I get it.
I can't.
I can't. And here's the other half. This is another disturbing aspect of what you pulled up, is that the voting thing that's only men.
It's only men. Yep.
So this, to me, is sexism at its finest.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to vote as a man, you've got to have selective service. Now, women, you can vote
Yep.
without registering. It's okay.
Well, that was the compromise they made way back when.
Yeah.
And
it's the stupidest thing ever. You want equality, you can have it, but
the women's suffrage movement didn't. A lot of them did not want the right to vote because they did not want to be drafted.
Right.
And they didn't want military service, and so they said, "Fine, we'll give you the right to vote, but you don't have to do military service." Men, on the other hand, don't have that option. So it's a very skewed system as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. It's kind of like,
think
it's
about
like
this.
shopping at Marshall's.
Yeah. The argument that a lot of people like shopping at Marshalls.
Well, I mean, think of it, right? You've got, I mean, sure, you've got, man,
you get these 3 racks.
Right. Ladies, the rest of the store.
Hang around in here so your wife knows where to find you.
Get a cart. Yeah, you guys, I'll be over here in 3 aisles, honey. 2.5 hours later, you've looked at every shirt, whether it's your size or not. And then, God forbid, you make it to the cologne wall. There's just 5,000 opened, half-eaten colognes over there.
Yeah.
Most of them don't have a squirt top on them. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
The whole system's rigged.
It's all rigged against us. And you know what?
I can't win.
A woman, you ever try to find a belt in that store?
No, I
mean,
never have.
it's like you've got 700 belts hanging on a wall.
All different sizes, all different.
They're all different.
Oh,
and you can only see the front row. You know, like you got to pick through that row by, women's, it's like, oh, let's put these on an end cap. They all match. You find your size. Everything's great. Guys, it's like, here you go.
Sling it back up there.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Sexist.
It is. Yeah, it is. But no, that was the compromise they made. And, people, like I say, the suffrage movement, I had another point I was going to make, and I completely
lost
me
because
at
of Marshalls.
Marshalls, man.
TJ Maxx. Yeah.
TJ Maxx and Marshalls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it was a pretty.
Well,
good
it was
point.
the compromise they made. Men voting.
Yeah.
They had to register. Women didn't have to register. That's where we were at, and I know that's
Yeah, and there,
I talked about equality,
yeah. Oh, dadgummit, it was a good
and
point.
I'm sure it was a brilliant point.
And I forgot what it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is
I'm sorry, y'all.
yeah, no, it's okay.
It happens.
It does to the best of us, and the older
Yeah.
you get, the worse it becomes.
Oh yeah.
So,
So it's already happening to me.
well, tell you what, I'm gonna go make some dandelion soup for my boys. It's that time, 10:06. We've gone 6 minutes over, but man, we love talking to everybody here.
Yeah, it's been great.
And thank you guys all on Rumble for tuning in, a couple on Facebook. We appreciate you listening. Like and share us, especially Facebook. There, you know how it is. We talk about the algorithms. They have choked us to death, and I think they've done it because of Dr. Briscoe, who is one of our guests all the time, who's a man who I admire, and he calls it like he sees it.
Right.
And
He does.
That's important.
He doesn't mince words.
Nope. So, like and share. That way we can drum up a little more business. And also, I want to encourage people to comment.
Yes.
If you have anything that you would like us to discuss, you can go ahead and email us at thebraverthantheRest@gmail.com. Again, it's thebraverthantheRest@gmail.com. And of course, always your comments are welcome. We do respond. We do.
yeah.
We do address things. We talk directly to you if need be, and try to set the record straight. So we appreciate you guys all tuning in. Until next week, keep your eyes to the skies because I believe that our King is coming soon, and I look forward to meeting him. So, braver than the rest.